The military parade in Beijing this September featured North Korean leader Kim Jong-un standing alongside Chinese General Secretary Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin. At the time, many observers believed these three authoritarian leaders shared a strong bond, but is that truly the case? North Korea has recently escalated this information blockade. Reports indicate that Pyongyang has ordered a complete crackdown on residents using Chinese phones, even threatening them with execution. This has caused widespread fear and is seen as a sign of growing tensions in China-North Korea relations. According to sources within North Korea, the Ministry of State Security issued directives at the end of September instructing local authorities to handle all individuals still using Chinese phones by the end of the fourth quarter. This move marks one of the most severe measures in North Korea's history of controlling external communications. Daily NK, a publication specializing in North Korean affairs, quoted sources from Hyesan, a city in the Ryonggan province, saying that nearly everyone in the area now fears a mention of mobile phone. The recent statements from the Ministry of State Security were very harsh, stating that possessing or using a Chinese phone is equivalent to identifying oneself as a spy and poses a national security threat. According to an insider, those found guilty could face execution. The source described an atmosphere of unprecedented fear in the city, with many residents afraid to even turn on their Chinese phones, despite still owning them. For years, North Korean border residents have relied on Chinese phones to communicate with the outside world. These phones have been used for smuggling, private exchanges, and foreign currency transactions. Due to the government's long-standing policy of extreme isolation, such phones have become critical for the informal economy and are also viewed as a way of information infiltration. Reports suggest that the Ministry of State Security directed local authorities earlier this month to intensify efforts to confiscate Chinese phones, stressing the need to not only target individuals but also trace the source. In Hyesan, authorities have installed multiple signal detectors and are conducting regular patrols to track down suspicious signals. Local people's classes have been tasked with educating residents, with 2 security agents assigned to each class to explain the severe consequences of using Chinese phones. A source familiar with the situation revealed that security agents have adopted an unusually harsh tone. They shared, "Owning a Chinese phone is a direct crime against the state. Our party showed leniency once before, but if it happens again, even your family will be punished." The insider further explained that after hearing warnings of possible execution, many residents have hidden or discarded their phones. Hyesan has been very quiet at night recently. No one dares to make calls. The security agents are on high alert and everyone is afraid that one mistake could lead to disaster. Similar reports have emerged from North Hamgyong province, where border areas are also under strict surveillance. Local source noted that security forces have been conducting surprise inspections in key villages. One source said, "The crackdown has been very strict. If you're caught with call records or foreign SIM cards, not only will your devices be confiscated, but you could be sent to a detention center or worse, interrogated." A local resident told Daily NK using a Chinese phone now isn't just illegal, it's a matter of life and death. They stress that officials are constantly warning, saying if you're caught again, someone will be executed, creating a climate of fear where the atmosphere is as tense as during wartime and even breathing feels dangerous. Sources indicated that although people have been sentenced to long prison terms in the past for using Chinese phones, the current atmosphere is different. One resident from North Hamgyong said, "Everyone is quietly saying that there could really be cases of execution this time." Observers note that North Korea has occasionally used public executions as a warning, particularly during periods of instability along the borders of when public morale is low, to reinforce its fear-based rule. If, as rumored, the Ministry of State Security intends to carry out execution as a public example, it will likely tighten the grip on local society even further. Since the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, North Korea has sealed its borders under the guise of pandemic control and launched what is called a sweeping campaign, cracking down on illegal communication devices and the flow of foreign information. In recent years, the North Korean government has frequently emphasized the importance of ideological quarantine, urging citizens to steer clear of hostile cultures and capitalist infiltration. China's decade-long reform and opening up policies, which some view as a blend of oligarchic capitalism and Soviet-style planned economy, have led to economic development. However, China remains a country where ideological freedom is tightly controlled. While Western culture has managed to influence China to some extent, this remains unacceptable to North Korea, a far more closed-off regime. North Korea's greater concern, however, may be China's growing security threat. Chinese-made smartphones such as those with Huawei, Xiaomi, Oppo, and Vivo have been all the center of security concerns. These worries stem from China's national intelligence law, which requires companies to cooperate with government intelligence work, raising fear of data leaks and backdoor vulnerabilities. In addition, Western media and governments often accuse these phones of being a vehicle for espionage or data breaches. Chinese smartphones, particularly domestic versions, send user data including location, text messages, and call records to Chinese servers through apps such as browsers and input methods. Even when used abroad, Chinese phones may bypass VPNs and leak sensitive information. Some studies and user feedback suggest that export versions of these phones are somewhat safer, but not significantly so. The devices that make their way into North Korea illegally are likely to be the domestic versions of Chinese phones. The recent reports that North Koreans could face execution for using Chinese phones have surfaced at a particularly sensitive time. Chinese General Secretary Xi Jinping is scheduled to visit South Korea from October 31st to November 1st during the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation (APEC) summit in the historic city of Jeonju. This will be his first meeting with South Korean President Lee Jae-myung. However, this visit may cause tensions with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Earlier, during the 80th anniversary celebration of the Workers' Party of Korea, Xi Jinping did not visit North Korea personally, instead sending Premier Lee Chang. Premier Lee Chang visited North Korea from October 9th to 11th, but his visit has been criticized for lacking national dignity, with some even claiming that Kim Jong-un humiliated him. When Kim Jong-un meets with visitors from Russia or Vietnam, he brings a full team filling the meeting room. However, during his meeting with Lee Chang, he brought only one official. A video circulating online shows Lee Chang preparing to leave after his visit, seemingly bidding farewell to Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un, however, kept his hands in his pockets, frequently turning to speak to his subordinates. He only nodded briefly to Lee Chang at the end, maintaining a stern expression without offering a smile. In contrast, Lee Chang stood before Kim Jong-un with his hands in his sides, appearing to wait for a reprimand. When Lee Chang left, he waved goodbye to Kim Jong-un, who only gave a brief wave before turning away. On September 3rd, during the Chinese military parade, Kim Jong-un appeared alongside Xi Jinping and Russian President Putin on the Tiananmen Rostrum, an event that many observers viewed as a display of an evil new axis. However, this event does not necessarily indicate a strong relationship between Kim Jong-un and Xi Jinping. Analysts note that Kim Jong-un did not meet Xi Jinping until 2018, marking a 7-year period during which their relationship was not particularly close. In 2014, Xi Jinping visited South Korea for a state visit, a move that displeased Kim Jong-un. Some suggest that Kim Jong-un has seen through the empty promises of the Chinese Communist Party, now relying more on Russia, which he finds more reliable. In contrast, the CCP is seen as offering empty words with little action. Russian President Vladimir Putin visited North Korea in June last year, signing a new comprehensive strategic partnership agreement with Kim Jong-un. Both sides pledge mutual support in case of aggression against either country. Since 2022, North Korea has supported Russia in the Russia-Ukraine war. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, North Korea has sold a large quantity of weapons to Russia, and by the end of 2024, North Korea had sent military personnel to Russia. In April 2025, both countries formally acknowledged the involvement of North Korean troops in the war. While North Korea deepened its ties with Russia, rumors of a rift with China have circulated since last year. On July 31st, 2023, South Korea's Jong-un reported South Korean National Intelligence Service discovered that after Kim Jong-un's meeting with Russian President Putin in June, Kim issued a directive to North Korean diplomats in China in July to stop worrying about China's opinion. NK News, which closely monitors North Korean developments, reported that during a Victory Day event in Pyongyang on July 27, 2023, ambassadors from Russia, Vietnam, Cuba, and other countries attended, but the Chinese ambassador Wang Yajing was noticeably absent. NK News analyzed this as highly unusual. In response, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ling Jian denied any change in China-North Korea relations, stating that China welcomed the strengthening of ties between North Korea and Russia. Former director of Tamkang University's Graduate Institute of International Affairs in Taiwan, Wang Mingshen, has said that Kim Jong-un seeks to balance the influence of both China and Russia on North Korea. Wang explained that for a long time, China was North Korea's biggest brother, providing support through economic and energy aid on the international stage. However, in recent years, China has also had to confront strategic opposition from the United States. The US views North Korea's support for Russia in the war as problematic, leading to many sanctions on North Korea. As a result, China's supply to North Korea has decreased, prompting North Korea to seek more assistance from Russia. Wang commented, "From this perspective, there's a sense of strategic balancing." China has long been North Korea's main trading partner, accounting for over 90% of its foreign trade, but this influence has led Kim Jong-un to feel uneasy and even frustrated. Since Kim Jong-un assumed power in 2012, it is believed that he has been working to reduce North Korea's dependency on China. For years, North Korean authorities have maintained a cautious stance towards the Chinese government. In 2018, Daily NK reported that the North Korean government ordered a ban on the sale of Chinese goods. Sources revealed aside from industrial products made in China, items like food and home appliances were banned. The suddenness of the move left many people who primarily sold Chinese goods unsure of what to do. In a report last year, South Korea's Jong-un Ilbo revealed that North Korea has been cracking down on the spread of Korean wave culture, extending its control to Chinese wave content. The report said recently North Korean authorities have restricted ethnic Chinese from leaving their residence and have limited access to Chinese families for North Koreans. There were rumors that North Korea banned its people and military personnel from watching Chinese films in recent months, with reports of USB drives containing Chinese films being confiscated. In August last year, Radio Free Asia reported that North Korea added Chinese films and TV shows to a list of impure media and imposed a ban on internal speeches with a Chinese perspective of history. Sources disclosed that the ban, approved personally by Kim Jong-un, stemmed from Pyongyang's dissatisfaction with China's distorted portrayal of Korean Peninsula history. Former South Korean National Intelligence Service Director Han Kim-bun previously pointed out that Kim Jong-un had declared in 2015 the US and Japan are North Korea's century-long enemies, while China is a 5,000-year-old enemy. However, Kim Jong-un appears to have a unique sentiment towards US President Donald Trump. On September 22nd this year, North Korean stated media KCNA reported that during a speech at the 14th Supreme People's Assembly, Kim Jong-un said, "Personally, I still cherish good memories of US President Trump." Kim Jong-un added that if the US were to abandon the denuclearization precondition for talks, he would be willing to restart dialogue. In contrast to his softer tone towards Trump, Kim Jong-un has expressed a much tougher stance towards South Korea. He has insisted that he will not engage in dialogue with South Korea, emphasizing that the two countries will never be unified. During his first term, Trump met with Kim Jong-un 3 times at the 2018 Singapore summit, the 2019 Hanoi talks, and the June 2019 Panmunjom meeting. However, nuclear negotiations with North Korea have stalled, and after the outbreak of the Russian-Ukraine war, North Korea has become an important military ally of Russia. There is speculation that when Trump attends the APEC summit in South Korea, he may seek to meet Kim Jong-un at the Panmunjom, the truce village. Returning to the China-North Korea relationship, while both countries share similar ideologies, a deep-rooted mutual distrust has existed for some time. Kim Jong-un's mistrust of China is not new, as his father, the late Kim Jong-il, also harbored suspicions towards the Chinese government. According to US diplomatic cables released by WikiLeaks in January 2011, Kim Jong-il told then-president of South Korea's Hyundai Group, Hyun Jong-un, that he no longer trusted the CCP. This statement came from Kim Jong-il's remarks during a 2009 meeting with Hyun Jong-un. At that time, North Korea had just conducted its second nuclear test, and China did not prevent the United Nations Security Council from imposing sanctions on Pyongyang. Instead, Beijing issued a strong condemnation of North Korea's nuclear explosion. Despite years of China and North Korea promoting a blood-bonded friendship through fighting, with China being North Korea's largest aid provider, Pyongyang has always been suspicious and wary of China. Over the years, North Korea has minimalized or even erased the sacrifices made by the Chinese military to support Kim Il-sung's regime during the early 1950s, while eliminating what it sees as a pro-China element within the country. US-based political analyst Chen Po-kong has suggested that the distrust between the Kim regime and China is rooted in history, with North Korea merely using China. While China has long supported North Korea, hoping to use it as leverage against the West with what could be called a brinkmanship strategy, Beijing also does not want North Korea to grow too powerful. Chen explained that China sees itself as North Korea's protector, providing economic aid. However, this aid has been limited. On one hand, China does not want North Korea's regime to collapse as it would harm China's own interest. On the other hand, China is hesitant to provide too much support, fearing that a wealthier North Korea would become a threat to China. He emphasized that Kim Jong-un and the North Korean regime have always been unruly, with no country truly able to control them. This independence is part of the regime's core nature. Chen also noted that the relationship between China, North Korea, and Russia is highly delicate. Russia's close cooperation with North Korea can be seen as a challenge to China, effectively taking away China's ally. While the West often views Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran as forming an axis of evil, there are many internal conflicts within this so-called axis. Chen argued that because these countries are authoritarian regimes lacking moral principles, this axis is unstable and could collapse rapidly under external pressure. Current affairs commentator Yue Shan believes that, based on the events at Beijing's September 3rd military parade, Kim Jong-un walking side by side with Xi Jinping and Putin was nothing more than a performance. He suggested that while these dictators may appear united, they have different agendas. Xi Jinping spent a great deal of money to bring Kim and Putin to the event, but in the end, the money was wasted. Kim Jong-un in reality does not take Xi Jinping seriously.